Welcome, everybody, to week 8 of the Cross Commission Saturday Night Power Hour. Hope everyone's enjoying their Easter weekends. I'm Ryan. We got Jake, we got Safe, and we got a lot to talk about in a pretty wild day of college lacrosse, to say the least.
Survival Saturday.
Uh, yeah, so this edition of the Power Hour will go for about an hour or so, like we always do. I've got some visitors. I think Safe might have some visitors too. So we'll try to keep this a nice, tidy hour. But a lot to talk about today. Thank you all for joining us, whether it's live on YouTube or if you're listening to us afterwards on the pod. Um, but let's start off talking some lax. Let's get the timer on Google. 1 hour timer. And we'll begin now with a wild, wild one in Chapel Hill, where Army beats North Carolina 13-12 in a game that Army was behind for the vast majority of it. But then the Black Knights show some mettle at the end and come away with a last-minute victory to keep them at 8-1. Nice recovery after last week's loss to BU, but at the same time, a loss here would have put them in a pretty perilous situation. So Army with the late victory there against UNC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was huge win, I think, for Army. I mean, I really thought North Carolina was going to come out, just respond, after last week's collapse at High Point, that just thought there would just be some type of final stand type thing. This is a great opportunity. Army, well, maybe not the highest of RPIs, definitely a team that, highly ranked. And it started that way. Carolina jumped out early, lead, but felt that like a lot of missed opportunities. Jake, I saw a few of your tweets kind of point to that. Just felt like they should be having a larger lead than they did. Kind of essentially just going to halftime up 2. And then, Army just, fights back. Kind of think like Carolina's going to just not give up, but, wilt, but they have a great opportunity. Tie the game up. I thought Carolina would have a chance of winning regulation. Then, Plunkett scores with like 50 seconds left, and I'm like, oh, it's over, right? And then Army then wins the subsequent faceoff, but just I guess an empty netter. I forget exactly who took the shot, but just a kind of an ill-advised shot at the end. So Carolina had the ball, 30 seconds left. That was like, all right, let's get some magic here, but absolute just disaster of a last possession. Barely even get it over the midfield line. I wouldn't even consider that like a coherent possession, and just kind of I wouldn't say uncharacteristic, but this has been characteristic for Carolina.
Yeah, I was going to say that's
it's this will be expected now almost, and it's kind of a shame because this is like one of a power programs in a power conference, and with a legit lineage and everything. They're proper, one of the all-time great teams, and just kind of weird to see it's just not going anywhere. It feels like I think really last year, they were in the same boat with like Syracuse and a couple other teams that just needed to do one last act to get them into the tournament. I think Carolina's going to struggle to even get above 500 this year, let alone be even in that conversation at the end of the year. So, I mean, after a year of such upheaval, the coaching ranks feels like they're kind of right back into where they were last year, and honestly, maybe in a worse position. So, yeah, just definitely surprising. Just the way it ended. Like there was glimpses of vintage Carolina there. Kind of a ferocious, potent team that's kind of intimidating. Didn't see the ride consistently throughout the, but there were points that game at the end that you could see some urgency. But yeah, just young team obviously, and I think they've got some potential stars there, but it's not it's not going to be a good year, I think, at Carolina once everything ends.
No, I mean the season definitely not going really in the right direction at all. Owen Duffy, I mean, yeah, he was phenomenal. He really dominated his matchup with AJ Pilot, and he showed some kind of flashes of what can is potentially the future of Carolina. I was just kind of struck throughout. Carolina's just like an ordinary team now. Like there's no ride, there's no transition. They just sort of play a 6-on-6, and in the 6-on-6, they're a young team. I mean, defense they're a little more experienced. They got Paul Barton back there, Andrew Gepper, guys have been around for a bit. Creeks, obviously, 4-year starter and goal, start every game. So you'd probably expect a little bit more on that side of the ball. But offensively, they got a lot of young pieces in there. Obviously the attack with Duffy, Petro, and some of the midfield as well. The midfield does nothing. I mean, today Dadson had some, I think Johnny Schwartz in a goal. I think Ty English was just really good as a two-way guy. But yeah, they don't through the process of what they did with the coaching changes and how it all kind of shook out. They feel like they just stripped their identity really kind of away, and now they just. I mean, that was their thing. Was the ride obviously was a huge part. What they did, obviously transition offense, and I don't think you really get that a lot with Carolina, at least from what I've seen from them in 2024. The end of game offense is just an absolute train wreck. I mean, it's just
unbelievable.
Just put it in the dumpster. Yeah, it's really bad. Army is big to get this one. Obviously, I mean, look, you can look. I mean, from the perspective, if they lost this game, they pretty much had one track to the tournament. To that end of it, they still might if they be on a one track to the tournament in terms of if they lose.
Yeah, not the easiest Patriot League road ahead either. Colgate, Navy, Loyola. Even though they've been very inconsistent, they've had some big wins this year.
Yeah, so it's a tough stretch. It might be either way. Just be if they lose another game this regular season, maybe the Patriot League tournament might be one track, but maybe not. We'll see. But they felt like they were hitting a wall a bit. They kind of feel like they're hitting a wall to a degree. A lot like early in that first half, just a lot of just struggles passing and catching. Just basic miscues. This has kind of been a theme with Alberici's teams, is that they're really great starters. They can get some big wins in February, kind of really rise in the rankings, but they struggle to close, towards the end of the year. Obviously, they did last year, with winning the Patriot League and then getting into the tournament and then beating Maryland. But generally with them, we know they obviously always have a winning record and they're always in the conversation, but the reason they haven't made more tournaments is usually because they don't really get the job done in the Patriot League tournament and more towards the end of the year. It does feel as if, we're approaching April, they might be hitting a bit of a wall. And I think if they had lost this game back-to-back weeks, with losses on the road, so I mean, obviously this is a tough stretch. Going to BU, going to Carolina, that's a lot of travel. I think it could have been a chance, especially with Ryan mentioned the schedule coming up. Could have been, the season could have, the rails a bit for him. I think this is big to steady the ship. They made a goalie switch. Sean Byrne went in net for Matt Chess. I thought he played really well. Made some big saves for him. That's something to monitor. Army's defense is not a vintage Army defense this year by any stretch of the imagination. Pilot obviously is kind of, we look at him as that kind of number one defenseman that they usually have. He was not great in one-on-one covering Duffy. He did have a bunch of cause turnovers though. Like he made an adjustment, just kind of started center field wreaking havoc. their shorties are not great, I think, which is kind of a struggle. But it is worth kind of just looking at. When was the last time Army had a goalie like coming into today? Matt Chess was saving 47%. Like when's the last time Army had a goalie that wasn't at minimum very good?
Yeah.
So if they can get back on track in the goalie department, that could be something to watch for as, potentially get that defense turned around at least into, I don't know, top 25, because I think like they've been like mid 30s defensive efficiency. So that's something to monitor. So I think, yeah, it's big. Like they really kind of looked like in that first half, like they were hitting a wall. And if they can, just get this win, we'll see how they can tackle these last 3 games in Patriot League play. Look, if they want to win the Patriot League regular season, get the number 1 seed, they can't lose another game because BU's got the advantage of them in the tiebreaker. So they got to, close strong on that if they want to host. So, big win for that. Evan Plunkett's a monster. That dude Carolina could not cover him all day. He's a beast. He's probably the midfielder of the year, favorite for it. There's some good 2-way guys. Like offensively, there's not another midfielder that has as good as he is. He was perfect.
So that wasn't the only big nail biter going on at the time, because up in Cambridge, Virginia was in deep trouble for 7/8 of the game against Harvard. Then, out of friggin' nowhere, they get a goal out of no other than Matthew Nunes. And that ends up being the game winner, and they end the game on a huge run to beat Harvard 13-10. I think that was, a 7-0 run to end the game?
In like 10.
So Virginia, it was looking like we could have had a huge shocker up in Cambridge. And, boy, the implications with that in terms of how that would boost the Ivy League and everything. But that goes by the wayside with the Virginia comeback. That just another bizarre game that we had on our hands in the early window.
Missed opportunities, Jake. I mean, we kind of hit that. Who can you trust? Late game, lead, at home, sellout crowd. You got that emotions. You're probably like, thinking if you're a Harvard fan, you're like, yeah, this is amazing. And then like, this is what we talk about like Virginia. They got that switch that just like if they get on a run, and that eruption on the sideline when News scored. I mean, look, you all saw that replay. I mean, it was just like that's a tidal wave. That's a Virginia, like that's a real ride for Virginia. You know what I'm saying? Like when they're really humming like that. And if that was at Klockner, I mean that joint would have just exploded. Like if News scored that in the same exact situation,
they would have had to stop the game. Like
people would have been like, it would have been pandemonium for a minute. Like Lars would have had to get on the mic and be like, "Okay, please."
Lars might taking his shirt off.
That's the Mario Balotelli flex. Like just runs into the middle, flexes that burn. Oh, that would be wonderful. But this is what we're just saying. Like, teams that are in these type of situations that they may haven't been in before, like it's a learning experience and stuff like that, moral victory stuff. But no, you wanted to win this one. It's a missed opportunity, and this is gonna be something that at Selection Sunday when if Harvard doesn't get the Ivy AQ, they're like, not maybe it would have made a difference, but this would have kept you longer in the conversation. There's a whole point about this time period now, the next 5-6 weeks, it's just like, it's like a treadmill that just keeps going faster. You're trying to stay on as long as possible, and then when it's Selection Sunday, if you get a at-large, wonderful. But they're going to be I think Harvard's going to be kicking themselves at this after an 0-2 start at the Ivy. Like this would have been a great little non-conference, to point to. And like I said, just we've been saying this is the year of the box office, 3,000 sold out fans. Like we keep kind of saying this about Richmond. How great would it have been to go home with a victory? After such a great experience. So this one's, a great effort, up 3 or 4, fourth quarter. This is, they'll get better. This is a young team with a load of talent, but missed opportunity. Just really going to be regret this at the end of the season, if not already today.
Yeah, Harvard's past the point of learn from it, or they've lost 3 games in a row now by a combined 8 goals, and they were kind of in all of them. The Yale game, they kind of struggled to win faceoffs, and they came back in it and fought. The Princeton game sort of just kind of got outpunched offensively. This was their best performance of the year. At home, their defense was terrific for 50 minutes. They really had a game plan, obviously, going in of not sliding to to Schellenberger. They didn't feel like they were threatened by Virginia's midfield in terms of like the shooters. They weren't going to hedge and leave time and room shots for Virginia's middies. And they just kind of forced Virginia to get very static offensively. It was just a lot of Schellenberger dodging, guys standing around. And you have Virginia up 4, you play like that. I mean, you're just in the spot that, Harvard's in. I mean, look, this team was in the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. You gotta, get the job done. I mean, I've been saying it. There are some whiffs of Michigan last year to this Harvard team, I feel like. And Michigan was in, this kind of position where they had that Penn State game. Remember, Michigan had that game Penn State at home where they had a big lead and they couldn't get the job done, close it out. They had other opportunities. I think they had a lead at Rutgers too. They couldn't close out. So, there are moments here you can kind of see it, that this team can be close to winning these games. Obviously, with the talent they have, you kind of wonder if they can get in the Ivy tournament, and they can get on a roll with that offense, what they can make happen. But the thing is, look, the benefit Michigan had was they had the halo of the fact that the Big Ten lets everyone in the conference tournament. Harvard does not have that halo. Harvard's got to go out and beat Penn on the road, or they got to go and beat Cornell on the road. They got to win. They got to win.
They already have lost to Yale and Princeton.
Yep. So they got to win. Probably they got to win both of those. I mean, they got to win at minimum. I mean, both probably. Yeah. So with Penn wins.
Was that Yogi Berra quote? Is getting late early right now.
Exactly.
It's getting late early.
So yeah, I think you have Virginia up on the ropes, up 4 with 10 minutes left, and you give up 7 goals in 10 minutes. One at the game-winning goals to the goalie. There's really no other way to, put that one. You need to close that show. And instead, Matt Nunes was the showstopper.
Matt Nunes is an absolute magician.
The Cavaliers on Saturday. Virginia's an interesting spot. It's not the Virginia we're accustomed to. It's still super. They still got a lot of great talent on that team, but it's they're missing. They kind of miss I think those kind of juice guys. A lot of some of those Virginia fan pointed this on the comment. I think they miss some of those juice guys like a Laviano, Conrad, some of those guys who can make those plays for them. This was that juice play for them was Matt Nunes, scoring a goal. But more than anything, that their offense has really been built around the last couple of years is that in addition to Schellenberger being obviously everything he is and how much you got to pay attention to Schellenberger, you also had to devote attention to the first Schellenberger's, first 2 years, Matt Moore, and they had, that 2 quarterback system. You had to pay just as much attention to up top with, Moore dodging, and they stressed you out from everywhere on the field. And then last year is Dixon, who could stretch you in the field with how you could shoot. So they really, they could, apply pressure points in so many different places to you. Right now, it feels like the only pressure they really apply is with Cormier inside. It's Schellenberger, and then you know what they're going to do. they're going to want to feed it inside to Cormier. And Harvard really took that away. They were really packed in and trying to take out Cormier. The guy for Virginia needs to be Schutz. He's got to get the ball. Like, that guy's a game breaker. He was a game breaker against Maryland, and he had moments again today. Because you can get him on the wing dodging towards guys. You can invert him. You can set picks for him. Like, it can't just all be Connor. Like, because defenses are going to key on him. We've seen him for how many years now? They need another option, or else I think they're going to be easier and more predictable to defend. And I think it's going to need to be a lot like getting that ball into Schutz's stick. Or than that, I think they've become a bit. I think they just become a bit more predictable. It's just they don't apply as much pressure to you the way they used to. Like for long, it's been so hard to defend them for years and years. I just think the ball doesn't move as much as it does. The ball dies a bit more now.
Yeah,
stick.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a good job of closing out these games and everything, but I do think they're not the murderer's row that they had been in other years under Lars, and that's going to make this end of the season stretch very interesting. I think they're fine with UNC, but then they got Duke, which is a game that they famously never win. Then at Syracuse and versus Notre Dame. That heading into the ACC tournament, that is a tough stretch, and given the way that Notre Dame and Syracuse have been looking compared to how Virginia's been looking the past couple of weeks. I know, yes, when you go head-to-head, Virginia has won against Maryland while Syracuse has a loss, but just kind of the way that they've been playing, because let's just assume that they lose to Duke because they always lose to Duke. That could get a little tricky there at the end if they're not able to kind of click a little bit more in these next 2 weeks.
No, it's a hard run. Normally, their end of the season has been generally, kind of, on the lighter side because they've had that kind of break and they've, ACC plays wrapped up easier. So it's certainly a tough stretch. That Cuse game's gonna be really interesting. I think Cuse matches up well with them, and obviously, Cuse played really well today, but. And it's in the Dome, so...
Yeah, we'll segue, I guess, then into the ACC game of the day. Notre Dame 14, Syracuse 12. Notre Dame had controlled the game till the very end. Syracuse mounted a nice comeback effort, much closer than past Syracuse Notre Dame games, but I think a game that proves that Notre Dame's the best team in the country right now. And but at the same time, another good game for Syracuse to build on. I know there's no moral victories in lacrosse, but very gutsy effort out of the Orange there to come back at the end. And I think that's a game that sets both teams up nicely for this home stretch in April. Zoom type.
I mean, outside that first quarter, you guys were really in this one. I mean, it's kind of feels like
it's unfortunate they play the first quarter.
Yeah, but I get your point, Safe. Like the first quarter was looking like, oh, here we go again. This is gonna be Notre Dame winning by 14 like every other year. But no,
I was like, I kind of said similar about like that Hopkins Virginia game last year. I was like, after the first quarter, Hopkins had him. So like, I know it kind of sounds like loser talk, and I don't mean it as a backhanded compliment either. But I was really impressed with the 5-goal, fourth quarter. Like I really kind of got into, and there was a couple of moments. I mean, that one shot, forgive me, I think was it Hiltz, the one, the amazing save by Entenmann at the end. That was
one. And they had their opportunities toward the end too. They had two good looks. One was just pass went a little off, and then the other one was just no backup. But I don't blame them for taking the shot there with no backup. They had one. They had a good look.
Yeah. Exactly. I just meant like with about 10 minutes to go, this game was essentially over for all intents and purposes. And then Syracuse, really the beginning for the Syracuse kind of got started with Thompson's goal to get it down to 5. But from 13 minutes on in the fourth quarter, it was like a different orange team. And this is kind of what Jake and I were kind of talking about before, because I was waffling on this game. I was like, is that a lot of this? But originally had Syracuse, and then I kind of turned flip flop. But I was like, if that offense that has been potent, like kind of gets on the run, like you can kind of really see Cuse like kind of posing a challenge. And ran out of time, didn't have a good start, however you want to look at the beginning of the game, or how they weren't able to really finish it off at the end. Again, this is encouraging, is what I'm saying. Like, this is the odds-on best team in the country, number one in the nation, at least right now. To go toe-to-toe with them, like, kind of gives validity to what we've been talking about in the DMs. Like, the Q's very well may be the second best team in the conference. They've already beat Duke. They give Notre Dame a much better game. Usually this is a 8-10 goal loss, at their house. The box office is back, 5,000 people. I mean, this was like really kind of a quarterfinal environment, just like the buzz, especially when the Notre Dame really started getting cooking, when they were up like 10-5, like it looked like it was going to be like Route City, like, for them to respond the way they did. Like I said, if you're a Chiefs fan, this is just further signs that this is like more of a legitimate team that has definitely potential for an Elite Eight run, maybe even a cheeky Final Four run to get to Philly. So good signs. Still a loss as an L, but like I said, thing is going kind of shaping. They're going to have Virginia at the Dome in 2 weeks, obviously the 20th. But like I think if they go 2-1 with the Virginia, Cuse, and Notre Dame trifecta. I mean, if you talk to any Syracuse fan at the beginning of the season and you gave them that deal, I think most of them are going to take it. Yeah. So I think it's just encouraging and a good sign for Orange fans.
Yeah, and you also have the consideration now that with the ACC tournament back, might have a second shot at Notre Dame at a neutral site, which would be enticing, which would be very interesting. But I think, as you said, heading into the season, if you're going to tell me Syracuse is at 9-3, their 3 losses were to Maryland in overtime, Army in overtime, and Notre Dame by 2 on the road. And they got wins against Hopkins and Duke in there, and they're looking in very solid shape for a home game in the first round. I mean, I would be very happy with that. And again, I think it's kind of shifting the goals, as you said. I think heading into the season, I think the goal was quarterfinal, but some of these, looks are making us think a little bit further. Now, granted, they got to finish some of these games. The Maryland game they should have finished. The Army game they should have finished. And, I mean, this one was a good comeback effort. So I feel like they're almost there, which is a very good sign for the Syracuse team, especially given the past 2 years. And I think it bodes well for the future. I know that they're going to be losing some of the transfer guys that they're getting in, but you think about all the guys Notre Dame and Virginia are going to be losing after this season, and the guys Syracuse are going to be returning. That's going to be a promising proposition for ACC play heading forward. And the fact that these guys are performing that they are now at a high level, we saw it with the win against Duke. You saw it in the fourth quarter today. I think those are good signs for the Orange. But nothing to take away from the Irish, though, because I think the Irish, outside of that one loss to Georgetown, they've otherwise been answering the bell every time now. And this is another big victory to notch up, a very impressive victory. First, the Maryland win was very impressive. That Michigan win looked a lot better the following week after they beat Maryland. And now you got to win against Syracuse. The Irish, I guess the only concerning thing for the Irish is they might have shown a few holes today that they haven't been showing off in the past couple games. But I think otherwise, though, this is another top 5 victory for them. Maryland at the time was a top 5 victory. And I think they're setting themselves apart from the rest of the pack at this juncture of the season. Maybe we'll see how Penn State does tomorrow. I think Penn State might be in that same class with them. But they're starting to separate themselves with the pack.
No. There is not a team in the country on Notre Dame's level. Why are we entertaining this conversation?
Keep in mind, disclaimer: I've been high on Penn State heading into the season too.
They're clearly the best team. They're clearly the best.
But yeah, they are number one with a bullet at this juncture.
Yeah, they're the best team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Like they should win the national championship. Like, I mean, obviously. Cuse was ranked number 3, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm right about. Like, no, I'm just like, we can stop talking about them like, they're like, the little sisters of the poor here.
Mm-hmm. Like, they're going to be top 5 after this week too. They've earned themselves a solidified.
No, I mean, like, I get like it's like we're doing like we can like
I think it's because of the past couple of years.
Like it's a regional commuter school. Like
no, like look, if you're ranked number 3 in the country on April 1st, I think you can. It's a like obviously you should expect to make the Final Four. Like like.
But I'm saying heading into the season, we were aiming for let's get to the quarterfinal. Now it's shifting to, what would be nice, get into Memorial Day weekend. It's the shifting expectations, I think.
If you can get to the quarterfinal, you should expect to get to the Final Four.
A lot of smart people said that this would be a surprisingly good season for Cuse. Yeah, just saying. A lot of people say that preseason.
Say if they were ranked in the top 10, like.
And let's be honest, not you, Safe, but a lot of lacrosse experts think Syracuse is going to have a surprisingly good season. Think Syracuse is always going to have a surprisingly good season.
No, like, no, I mean, like, I think the game was certainly interesting. Like, I found it interesting. It's like, like. They should hope to not lose to Notre Dame by 2 touchdowns anymore. Like, obviously,
yeah,
like that was kind of like really
bare
bad.
minimum.
Like, I mean, I would hope like some of those Notre Dame Syracuse scores for the past 4 or 5 years are like legitimately like the lowest point in the history of the Syracuse lacrosse program.
That back-to-back like drop was 2021. That was bad. That was bad one.
The 2022 one. The one where the Jake Taylor comes out of like the practice squad and scores like 9 goals is like that's like the most embarrassing ever. Like the game was over in like 6 minutes.
And we thought that the most embarrassing loss was honoring the 100th anniversary of Syracuse lacrosse and then giving up a touchdown and a field goal to them or whatever it was. What was the final score? That was at 18-3.
There's been so many with this rivalry.
It's become. I tweeted out earlier when it was a big deficit in the first half. It's like this is the new age. This is the ACC's new age Duke, Virginia, where just Syracuse just has nothing for Notre Dame.
Duke, Virginia, at least like could be like close. Like this has been like, and Duke, Virginia also was like, there's some like Virginia would be like a favorite, so this has just been like, kind of, it's been embarrassing. So like, but no, I think it is. Interesting. Cuse put a seed. Look, Notre Dame is clearly the best team in the country. They've got maybe the best offense. They've got maybe the best one of the two. They got one of the 2 or 3 best offense, one of the 2 or 3 best defenses. Will Lynch suddenly wins like 60% of his faceoffs, which I don't know how that happened. Entenmann is, every time you think Entenmann's like not having a great,
He does what he did today, looking like vintage Dominic Hasek.
Yeah, he comes on, does his thing. So he was fantastic. Like in the first 3 quarters, they look like they should, just kind of like they're clearly ahead of everyone else. They haven't really been. This was the last like quarter was the first time they've been tested since the Maryland game, or really all season aside from the Georgetown game. They are a little. I kind of feel like they kind of took their head out of the game a little bit, and Cuse just snuck up on them. But maybe I don't think they're super deep in the midfield. I don't think they're super deep at offense midfield. I don't think they're super deep at defense midfield. They're not like. There were it kind of reminded me of this game a bit of that 2021 game against Maryland in the quarterfinal, where like they were up by like 3 or 4 goals, and then all of a sudden they just seemed to like hit the wall at like 50 minutes. And Maryland came back. And I do wonder if that's something to monitor with them, is, because that was the thing with them for a long time before last year. was like they used to kind of be like a great 50-minute team. But it was a question like, could they play 60 minutes? That was always a question we used to ask with them. And last year they were just so deep. It didn't matter. Like they could play, they could play with you for, 4 or 5 quarters. They beat Virginia in overtime, So I think is an interesting thing to monitor, No, I like this Cuse team. I think they got an they got an interesting vibe about them. They're they have a chance to be the disruptor in the ACC. These Notre Dame, Virginia, Duke have just been dominating this conference for, 4 or 5 years now. And these games between those three have kind of lacked some juice. I feel like they kind of lack some heat. There's not Duke a little bit. Like last year, kind of took on a bit of a a villain sort of role, but Cuse, they play without fear. They play confident, certainly. We saw that against Duke they really took it to Duke.
Uh-huh.
And you saw towards the end of this game, that they were not afraid of, I think, of kind of Notre Dame. And I think it's a good element to have. I think if they get in the ACC tournament, I think some of these ACC games, they need some, they need some fire to them. They need some, this Cuse team seems like they want to bring back, some of these, fire to some of these rivalries they have, which I feel like has kind of been missing from some of these big ACC games. And so, I think this Cuse team has an interesting role to play late in, down the stretch in ACC, go in ACC play and go into the tournament. They can, win some of these games. They can with kind of how, confident they are. Obviously, next year it'll change a little bit because Notre Dame, Virginia, and Duke will be young for the first time since was producing lacrosse jerseys. And Cuse will suddenly be a little.
I love when they were showing. I forget which part of it, but they're like, he gave up a position at an investment bank to come back to school. Like I was like, he's not storming Omaha Beach off of Hibbins. It's like he's going to one of the finest universities in this country and on of one of the best lacrosse teams. Like, shout out to 14 grad students. Shout out to Corrigan. I was
really thinking. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, going through this Notre Dame roster. I'm just like, yeah, he started in 2020. Yeah, he started in 2020. He started in 2020.
Yeah. It's not quite as comical as some of those Rutgers rosters we're looking post pandemic, but it's up there. It's up there.
It's so many guys. It's just like fifth year, 23, 24. It's something for sure. I think Cuse is the disruptor. I think I'm intrigued to watch them, play that role.
Yeah, so Syracuse got a quick turnaround. They got Cornell on Tuesday night. Usually the Cornell game's the second week of April, but it's a little bit earlier this year. And that takes on a new angle because Cornell today got Quakered in an absolute vintage Penn Quaker men's lacrosse game. Penn 11, Cornell 10 in double overtime. And in a game that was just an absolute mind bleep to watch, like any other Penn game that they win in overtime. It's always an experience, I guess, to say the least. An experience. I like you watch it and your jaw drops. You just have no words for what the hell you just watched.
Absolutely. Big killer Cam Rubin, hero of the day, 6 goals, including, honestly, one of the best got him shot fakes I've ever seen. Like, I did the Cornell defender that did the full Superman, but it was just, I don't want to come off as mocking and giving all out effort, but yeah, that was just like, that's going to be clipped many times. But this is what Penn does, just low down, dirty. You just feel like gross afterwards, but you kind of like it, every time it happens. So this is the standard bearer in the Ivy League, folks. You may not like it. You may disagree with it. You may have nothing but contempt for it, but the Penn Quakers are 3 and claim the top spot in the Ivy League. Speaking of disruptor, Jake, if they come out with the Ivy League AQ. I mean, this is just going to see a lot of scrambling going on at the last minute for some Ivy teams, I think. So, is this the team actually that we should really be putting our trust in? Because they're one of the few that actually, tries to play defense in this conference.
I don't know if you can trust in the Penn Quakers, even though they do play defense. This is still the Penn Quakers.
This is it. We're gonna trust them. They're gonna be 6-0. They're gonna get to championship and then lose championship game or something. But
semifinal to Princeton in overtime or something.
Literally, as the number 1 seed, yeah, absolutely, something just devastating that keeps them out of the tournament.
I keep thinking of that phrase of Die Hard, where Bruce Willis is talking to Alan Rickman. He's like, who's this? He's like, I'm the fly in the ointment, Hans. I'm the monkey in the wrench.
Exactly.
It's just the total curveball, and it's just it's a complete 180 from watching this game compared to those Cornell, Princeton, Cornell Yoga is just like it's a 360. It's a 180, 360, 720. I don't know.
It's like those 80s, did you ever see that movie, The Cutting Edge? It was like this is a wild analogy, but it's just it's American, just middle class. This is ice skating athlete, teamed up with a hockey player. And it's just this ugly American style, and then you compare it with these Europeans, just very graceful, elegant. And I was just that's what Penn is. Penn is the cutting edge. They're the Americans in the cutting edge that will come home with the gold and just gotta really ruin it for a lot of teams in the Ivy.
They're totally gonna lose their next 3 games. Now we've done this.
Yeah, they got Yale, Harvard, and Princeton.
Oh yeah, they're gonna finish 7-6, the perfect Penn record.
Oh, yeah, perfect. That Harvard game, they're gonna find some ungodly, unheard of way to lose that one. It's gonna baffle our minds how they lose that Harvard game.
I was at Yale. Oh man, if that was at Franklin Field, I would go to that one. I would go to that one for sure.
I could see them beating Princeton, but then having a rematch against Princeton the following, 2 weeks later in the Ivy semifinals, and then losing to Princeton. That would seem very Penn.
Every game, every one of these games could be close. It's just who knows? Even this one, it's obviously it's totally different from those Cornell, Princeton, the two Cornell games prior, but it's still. They played a 3-goal game with Dartmouth. Granted, that game was, in
a blizzard.
The snow rolls. Yeah, blizzard. So it, kind of throws, naturally kind of brings the teams together. But, you just look at their games. Decided by 3 goals, 4 goals, 1 goal, 2 goal, 4 goal, 3 goal, 5 goals, 5 goals, 3 goals, 1 goal. Every one of their games has been decided by 5 goals or less.
And the schizophrenia, of course, of beating Duke, 2 days later losing to UNC. Now they go from losing to St. Joe's midweek to a week and a half later beating Cornell.
By 5.
They lost by 5 to St. Joe's.
That's
a race spanking. And that was 3-0 in the Ivy League. I mean, yeah, granted, it's Brown and Cornell. Brown and Dartmouth to 2/3 of that. But Dartmouth's a frisky team. Brown, its challenges aside, this Cornell win is legit. I mean,
yeah, they got some pretty legit wins. The Duke win, the Cornell win now. It's Penn, baby.
Quaker lacrosse. It is. The Yale one's going to be hard. I think that's another. Because they were able to do this with Cornell, especially because Cornell among the Ivy teams plays really much slower pace. Compared to because Cornell doesn't win a lot of face-offs. So Cornell, even though they're a fantastic offense, they have to play a slower pace because they don't win face-offs. So that fit into Penn's game. But Penn, on average, at one point, Penn was taking 50 seconds off the shot clock before they were attacking. They're just chewing clock. Yale, on the other hand, is going to win face-offs you'd expect. Like, they have one of the best faceoff guys in the country, and Yale is one of the fastest teams in the country. So Penn's ability to dictate pace in that game is going to be much more difficult with Yale just going up and down the field and obviously winning faceoffs. The Princeton one's going to be kind of in their, ballpark a bit. The Harvard one, Harvard could play some good defense at times. It's it's not out of the possibility. That feels like another one goal kind of game in there. Barnhart, Harvard's goalie is really good. So, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, Penn's the Ivy feels like it's teetering. Like, Penn's 3-0. Yale, Princeton, and Cornell are all 2-1. Harvard has to pretty much beat Penn. I mean, honestly, they have to beat Dartmouth next week. Like, they remember Harvard lost to Dartmouth last year. If they lose, that Harvard's done. And Dartmouth, you figure, even if they can beat Harvard, Dartmouth still has to play these big Ivy League
Yale
teams.
And Cornell.
So like, if Harvard loses next week, I expect they'll win, but nonetheless, if they lose, they're done, and the 4 is locked in. Like, this is probably gonna be the 4, like Penn, Yale, Princeton, Cornell. But none of them are like have a clearly better at-large case than the rest. Like, Yale went from 2 in RPI. Yale actually went from 1st in RPI to 9th in a week, which is nuts. Like, just talk about just getting met by they played Lemoyne and Brown and just got hit by a just
RPI
wall truck. Yeah. So, like, none of them, like, if there is a bit of chaos somewhere, it does feel like is really kind of hanging on by a lead, like, in terms of kind of fighting for that. Ivy League tournament this year could be a real knife fight.
Now, Cornell, just going back to what we were talking about earlier.
Is it being played at
it's at the Crosse.
Where are they playing it this year?
Cornell Syracuse is at the
Columbia,
Crosse.
right?
In Ithaca.
No, they're playing Cornell? Oh,
Cornell Syracuse is in Ithaca. It's the old cold Tuesday night.
No, where's the Ivy League? Ivy
League tournament. Let's see. Ivy League men's lacrosse. Is it at Columbia again? I forget. Let's see. I'm putting it up now. It is at the number 1 seed. Number 1 seed.
Man, that makes it even more important for, like, who can grab it. Like, Cornell probably not. No disrespect to Cornell, but like Princeton hosting, man, they'd make that into a rock show.
Oh god.
Like Penn can, Princeton or Yale especially.
Yeah, Princeton or Yale, it becomes a big home field advantage.
So yeah, like home field event like that could be really. The Ivy League tournament's gonna be big. I think it's going to have an outsized importance this year. It had a big one last year with Princeton able to go and win it.
Yep. It kicked Denver out of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Denver, they had a tight one in Big East play today. 9-6 victory over Villanova, and that was another one where they were kind of struggling through it too. Things could have really gone haywire for their resume if they had lost to Villanova today.
They were up 9-3. I think they started 3-3 and then they scored 6 in a row, and then Nova scored 3 at the end. So
but that first half they were not getting much of anything going though.
Yeah, it was ugly. It's an ugly game.
Other frantic comebacks today. Navy beating Colgate 10-9. And then UMass was in a big hole against Hobart, but come back to win 13-12.
How many goals did UMass? Was it 7 or 9? I think they scored 9.
Yeah, let's see.
It was a lot.
It was a lot. Let's see. I'm getting up there thing. They were down 8-4 at halftime. Then they stopped tweeting for a bit. Until it was 8-11. So they were down at least 4. It was 11-7 when they started tweeting again. Hobart got it to 10-12, but then
it was. I got it here.
UMass was down 12-10 with 3.5 minutes left. They tied it up with a minute 53, and then won the game with 49.
UMass was down 10-4 at the start of the third quarter.
Yes, they scored 7.
So they scored 9 goals in the fourth quarter. They outscored them by 7.
That was a 9-goal, 7-goal down. It was nuts. I like that. We were talking about rock bottom losses a couple of weeks ago. Like this is, I don't know.
Hobart
fans.
Yeah, the Hobart fans feel a little. They're not thrilled.
They're going through it right now.
That feels like a. How long has Raymond been there? Like over a decade. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Hobart is one of the. I mean, if we're just talking like, take out the MAC teams, take out Hampton, take out so. There's a bottom 15, 20, like that are just like pure like not happening. Among like A10's what, a top 6 conference?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So ACC, Big Ten, Ivy, Patriot.
They're in there with the CAA for 5.
A10. Their A10's better than the CAA for sure. A10 is the old CAA at this point.
We were making a case that it may be better than the Patriot. So yeah, right around the 4th or 5th best conference.
In those 6 leagues, Hobart might be the worst job. The top. It was by worst. I mean, like toughest. Like in terms of like what they actually have to like. It's such a small school, and they don't get scholarships.
Yeah, it's.
So I think there might be movement. They might be getting scholarships soon in like a couple years.
But yeah, it's a very weird. It's a very weird structure. It's an all-male school in the year of our Lord 2024. It's combined with Marion Smith College, or is it William and Smith College? William Smith, which is an all-girls college. But yeah, it's funny having an all-boys and all-girls college in the year of our Lord 2024. It's a very unique situation with Hobart. And remember, they were on the very edge, in danger of going to fully D3 until like last second against a game against Cornell. They announced at halftime or whatever we're staying up in D1 back in the 2000s. I think that was like 2006, 2007-ish.
Yeah, I think I saw that like there's movement like the D3, the schools that were the schools that are the last schools that were exclusively D3, like petitioned like the NCAA to get full scholarships. So I think like they might be getting full scholarships soon. Like it's a chance. Go double check on that, which like would obviously give them much more of a like opportunity, but like they're just it's much harder what they're working with. But like still at a certain point you just kind of get like a marriage grows old. Like it just, it's and it feels like that might be what they're kind of hitting at at this stage. But speaking of in the A10, man, St. Joe's, they are like 17th in RPI, and like if they lost to BU and Towson early in the year, man, and they lost by a lot. So like it's not like they were close games.
Towson, they got blown out.
But man, it feels like they had an opportunity with like how their schedule really rounded together. They got a win over Penn. I think they could have had an opportunity this year, but
15-7 victory against High Point.
Yeah, they blew out High Point today. They've won 6 in a row now. The only one that was really close was the Providence game that they won by. They survived. They scored a late goal in regulation, then won an OT. It looks like again they're probably St. Joe's and Richmond kind of
crash course last week of the season. Yeah, Richmond 19-8 over St. Bonaventure. Big Ten play today. Hopkins wins over Michigan 15-11. And Ohio State beat Rutgers 14-8.
I mean, this is exactly what I want to see from a Hopkins team. The days when they don't have a good face-off, but just like finding possessions other places, whether it's like getting cause turnovers or just having good D. This is really encouraging. I mean, for having Michigan come through after they had beat Maryland, I was kind of a little bit concerned, despite the history between the two teams and being so one-sided, just because of Michigan's potent offense and face-off play. I was like kind of concerned because that's kind of where I find Hopkins is kind of weakest. Is pretty much like any team, you can lose in the face-off battle, or, you're gonna have a bad day. But Russell Melendez, I was actually talking to a friend of the show, Mark. Jake and I are probably going to get him on soon to talk some bracketology, but kind of not concerned so much about Russell Melendez, but just was hoping that kind of has a return to form. And I kind of was telling him, I was like, I kind of felt that he would be due kind of a big game just because last year he had a big game against Michigan, finishing with 4 goals. So it's happy to see him get up on the score. This team just has all the tools, like I was saying, Jake, a couple of pauses, like, don't want to be too partisan, but yeah, we kind of seen they didn't have a decent playoff run just because I think they have all the tools here. They can score, they can play tough D. I like how they, could share the rock from Angeles, Garrett Degnan to Peshko. I think they have like numerous like threats, even, Carlson, Hunter, Chavette, just like they can find points from a lot of places, which is something that, Hopkins didn't have for a good amount, in the post Petro era and the late Petro era. So I think Adam would agree, feeling good just before the Penn State game. I believe that's homecoming next week. So, hopefully should have a really nice crowd and, that's homecoming. And that Ohio State game is at Ohio State, and then that Maryland game, me and you, Jake, are going to be there at home with. So, if you're a Hopkins fan, got to feel really good after this one. And, I think RPI also we got a little bit of boost with that. So, third in RPI according to Lax Reference, got a win against the Wolverines. Feeling good, Jake. Like I said, not even looking at the ledge. Haven't even thought of it. So feeling good, feeling really good.
Yeah, Hopkins certainly. I mean, they're the team in. They got the kind of leg up right now in Big Ten play because they'll get Penn State at home. So either, Penn State wins and they'll get them at home, or Penn State loses to Maryland next week and they'll have a clear game advantage in Big Ten play. Michigan is fascinating. Like we felt really in the face-off really seems to give them a advantage in Big Ten play that they don't have out of conference. Like it's just because out of conference, like they, against Virginia, the face-off doesn't seem to have as much, advantage. Against Notre Dame, they just seem to get out talented. But in Big Ten play, where it's a little more, leveled up, they seem to play with just a different intensity in Big Ten, a different, confidence. I don't, there's different swagger they play about them. And then they can win those faceoffs. And they dominated faceoffs against, Maryland. They dominated. They had the advantage, for the most part. They dominated them late, which was key. And then they really dominated them today. It just really gives them a boost. Because, like in the Big Ten, like the only guy on Wheatfeld's level is, but Wheatfeld has the better Weirman. And then after that, it's a good face-off league, but Wheatfeld's, clearly the best guy. So, they really are a tough out for these teams, like we saw last year, and I think they'll continue to be that. Speaking of tough outs, I don't know if Ohio State is going to be capable of winning or pulling the upset against Ohio State or Maryland, or pardon me, against Hopkins or Maryland. They'll get Hopkins at home, which is key, but those games are going to be ugly. And that's what I think they want. Like, I look at the stat. Like, this was Ohio State's first road Big Ten win in like 5 years, not counting with fans in the building, because they had 2 in the COVID, the 2021 year. Other than that, they did not win a road Big Ten game in 2023. They did not win a road Big Ten game in 2022. So it's been a long time since they got a win on the road. And they, in general, since coming off that 2021 season, they'd only won 2 road games at all, period. So winning this one, I think, was important. They really took it to, Rutgers, especially in that second half. They kind of got their identity back, I think. Like, they play good defense. They play really good defense. Their faceoffs are good. Their goal is good. Their offense is not, really, but that was what Ohio State used to be, Like, they played good defense. They had good faceoff play. They had good goalie, and they made it a grind against you. It was, you played them, and you just, back old, it would be 8-7, and, it would be physical, and it'd be, they played with a real nastiness, as we often would see in those games.
It's like that meme. It ain't much, but it's honest work. That's what Ohio State was.
Yeah, so I don't. It's not. Look, I mean, they got a long way to go. I still think, like obviously, like if they want to make something happen here, like they got to win both of those Maryland or Hopkins games, or at that point, might as well the whole shebang. But yeah, I think they've got kind of their. It'd been a long time since they'd really, even when they made the tournament, it'd been a long time since they felt like Ohio State, and they kind of feel at least something like Ohio State this year, for the first time in a while.
All right, we're just about at the hour mark, so we'll run down some of the other games. Elsewhere in Big East play, Georgetown beat Providence 15-10. So Georgetown, they were up a bit bigger than that too. I think Providence just scored a couple games late. So Georgetown keeping pace with Denver there to start off Big Ten play at 1-0. Speaking of Big East play, a absolute whopper. St. John's beating Marquette 13-9.
Break up the storm.
Last night in Patriot League play, Loyola beat Lehigh 12-10. Let's just run down the scoreboard. Robert Morris beat Mercer 15-7. Bellarmine over Lindenwood 17-10. Binghamton over UMass Lowell 15-6. Bryant beats NJIT 12-8. So Bryant at 2-1 in America East play. NJIT, after starting the season 7-0, winless in 3 in America East play. So pour one out though. Albany in pole position right now, 14-13 victory over UMBC. So Albany right now in first place at 3-0 to start America East play. VMI beat Canisius 12-8. Princeton beat Dartmouth 15-5. Delaware over Hampton 21-3. Detroit Mercy over Queens 12-7. We mentioned the St. Joe's High Point game. Utah 16-14 over Jacksonville in the Jacksonville Lacrosse Classic. Siena 13-5 victors over Wagner. Towson wins a tight one over Stony Brook 9-8.
Let's go.
Fairfield over Drexel 18-13. BU wins the Mass Pike Derby 22-6 over Holy Cross. Hofstra in overtime beats Monmouth 8-7, so the Pride kick off CAA, get their first CAA win of the year. Manhattan comeback win over Marist 11-10 in a game between two of what's been the class of the NAAC in recent years. Speaking of which, Sacred Heart 5-0 in NAAC played us already. 17-6 victory over LIU.
Stomping teams.
Just pioneers.
Yeah.
5 goals, 10 goals, 2 goals. My goodness.
Yeah, the Pios are doing some work in NAAC play. I'm also saying they're already at 5 games, and then I remembered, that's right, the NAAC is a huge behemoth now with all the realignment. Yale 16-10 over Brown. Bucknell 17-8 over Lafayette. Vermont 20-8 over Merrimack. And Quinnipiac Bobcats shake off their first loss of the season midweek against Manhattan with a 15-10 victory over Mount St. Mary's. Bobcats have the opportunity to do something really hilarious in men's ice hockey again tomorrow when they take on number 1 BC. If you remember last year, they beat Michigan and their 20 NHL guys to win the national title last year. So it would be equally hilarious if they do the same thing again tomorrow against BC.
You're the Bobcats. You love it.
Anything else jumping at y'all? That
I'm excited for tomorrow. Got a couple of good games. Big Ten Sundays with a nice one. How you feeling, Jake? Better? Worse? About tomorrow?
I better win. That's all I know, man. They better win. That's how I'm feeling.
yeah, it's kind of wild to think that overtime win against Syracuse is really the thing keeping Maryland afloat a bit.
Yeah, man. Like, like they lose, they're gonna be 5-4.
This is like that last scene in Bad Boys 1 where they're racing towards the the little hole in the airplane barrier. And Will Smith's like, you better win. I swear to God, you better win.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, if they win, I mean, it's just kind of how tight this entire, like, once you get past the, these top 3 or 4 teams, just kind of how cramped everything is. If they lose, I mean, we're sitting here and they are, I mean, look, there's 3-4 weeks, like they got, they can still, they got time to turn it around. Like they, just go win their next 3 games, like, like, and they'll be in good spot. But like if they lose, they are probably they're not in the. Yes, they would be last in the Big Ten. Which would be the
tie with Rutgers.
Tied with Rutgers, yeah, last. Should be the first time that's ever happened. It'd be the first time they've lost 3 games in a row in the Tillman era. First time they've, I mean, I can't remember the last time they lost 3 games in a row. It'd be the first time, like they've had 4 losses by this point in the season. I couldn't remember tell you the last time. Yada yada yada. This would be the worst. To this point, it'd be the worst Maryland season in who knows how long. And they'd be at that point in time on April 1st. They would be out of the NCAA tournament.
But it would be a hard 5-4, Jake. Like Barry Bonds,
yeah.
It would be hard.
Strong strength of schedule. Tough road games. Like
Yeah, tell 2022.
We can make a case.
Yeah, tell 2022.
Some would say it's the best 5-4 team of all time.
Yeah, tell 2022 Syracuse how they're the hardest 4-10 team of all time.
But anyhow, if they win, then they're going to be ranked like close to the top 5 again, and they'll have wins over Penn State and Cuse, and it's like, oh man, we're good. We're in good shape.
You're literally the Affleck smoking meme, either the really depressed one or the really happy one I use when Hopkins wins.
Exactly. Like it's like beat Penn State on the road, and it's like, oh man, like we're talking home game again. We're talking like I'll see you at Homewood. I'll see you at Homewood in 2 weeks.
Like call the hotline. Safe, we're back.
Like I'll see you at Homewood. I'll be strolling in with my 2022 national championship shirt. I'll be ready to go. If they lose, I'll be like, Safe, I might have something else to do that day. Like
I'll meet you for lunch and then I'm going home. Yeah.
Like I'll watch the game across the street, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, I guess that's the last things. We always say, we hold firm, no bracketology till April. Well, Monday is April 1st.
Yeah, and that's no fun.
It's really cramped. The RPI, the top 10 right now: Notre Dame, Duke, Hopkins, Virginia, Penn State, Denver, Cuse, Cornell, Yale, Maryland. It was funny. I said, Safe, we said on like Monday, like the pod would be like antisocial. I actually don't think it's gonna be antisocial. The ACC has struck back.
They made their move. They made their play. You gotta respect them.
You do. You gotta respect it. Which is funny because like if Virginia had lost, but that's how it works out. It's all kind of they've circled the wagons. Yeah, if you were seeding it right now, Virginia actually I think would be seeded pretty low. Still.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have like they have this weird like resume where like their best win is Maryland, and like after that it's like they don't. Other teams have better wins. Like Notre Dame was the top seed. Duke, even Duke though, they're seeded
but they
2.
lost
You
to
could kind of.
Syracuse.
They did. They also, Syracuse is 7th, but the only two team in the Syracuse is 7th on RPI, but they're the only team with 2 top 5 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you seed Cuse in that? Penn State, Penn State is one of only 3 teams with 1 loss at the moment. I mean, it'll be a clearer picture for sure after it's Sunday tomorrow, and then obviously Cuse Cornell. But it's interesting, right now. Army has 1 loss as well. There's 14, but Army's got 1 loss and they're down to 11.
Quinnipiac has 1 loss.
Of course, Quinnipiac, but it's I think you've got we talk about the Ivy. They're all just kind of, those teams are kind of bunched together there. Like Hopkins has got 3 losses, but certainly scheduled very well during Thailand. So it's a very
fluid situation.
We talk about like the ACC. The ACC put themselves in they're obviously the kind of the top teams. They lost just enough games to make it kind of murky and potentially break up that kind of strong hold they had on like the bracket last year. Georgetown's still in the mix. Like
Georgetown hasn't lost since that. Georgetown has not lost since the Hopkins game on February 10th. So it's been a while since they last lost. Again, Penn State has not lost since the opening game of the season where they shocked us all by losing to Colgate.
Yes, which
where we're like, wait a sec, do we think Penn State's actually going to be good? And then, they just haven't lost since.
Which, unfortunately for Penn State, that Colgate game, like it looked for a while like that might not even actually hurt them, because like Colgate was hanging around with 20. Yeah, Colgate's now actually dropped out.
Yeah, that Navy losing to Navy today hurt big time.
So it's a very interesting. It's a interesting kind of picture.
Yeah. So also tomorrow, Cleveland State at Air Force, and then Tuesday night at 7, you got Syracuse Cornell, and you also got Lehigh Princeton as our midweek games.
Yeah.
Then I get irrationally angry that next Saturday both Syracuse and Princeton have bye weeks instead of playing one another.
East.
They brought it back last year.
And there's a bye week for a lot of them, right? At the end of the season before the Ivy tournament.
Brian, they just wanted to watch WrestleMania.
So I just realized today WrestleMania is going up against both Final Fours next weekend.
It does every year. But yeah, that happens every year.
Well, more so now because they do the Saturday night.
Because it's the first. Well, it's the first week because it's the first week of April. Well, I mean, that is the first week of April, right? Yeah. Because before it used to kind of like jump around, like sometimes it'd be like last week of March, sometimes it'd be second week, sometimes some years it'd be like the middle of March, but now it's just every week. It's like the first week of April. So, there you go. That's what Cuse Princeton was just like. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, we'll just watch the show. The Rock's back. It's like
we did our fan service last year. Come back next year, maybe.
Maybe Ryan. Maybe if you just yell enough to like play each other, like those like we'll meet in Arby's.
Yeah, bring it back. I mean, I've been yelling it for so many years. They pacified me last year by having it. I don't know. It's probably something with Gary.
That's why you got to double down. You got to like yell more, and maybe it'll work.
Maybe it's a deal where they just play every other year at Princeton or something. I don't know. Like they rotate Cornell and Princeton on and off now. I don't know. They should have both.
Every other year, but only at Princeton would be unbelievably beast. That'd be like a Desco move. That'd be a Desco move. Yeah, we'll see you, but only at the Dome.
Yes, but it'll be Gates' idea that'll be the New Jersey recruiting trip. Every road game that Syracuse does for non-conference is only for the sake of recruiting. I mean, that's why we're playing Johns Hopkins in Charlotte, North Carolina,
Did you see what?
and
Did you see what
Delaware
Quinn
in some suburban Catholic school in Virginia.
Did you see what Quinn said on the broadcast about why they played Duke Hughes on a Wednesday?
No, why?
He said something about like Duke like double booked, and like therefore the like game like because Duke like double booked for like the Saturday because every other ACC game is on a Saturday.
Right.
And so I think he said he's like Duke like double booked or something. Like they realized they had to play on a Wednesday. I think like Duke Denver is normally in February, always.
Yeah.
This year was in March. Did Duke like just schedule that Denver game like at this high school in Maryland and like forget they had to play Cuse?
Yeah, let me look. Yeah, because they played Denver last Saturday.
Yeah, when CSE comes knocking, you don't say no, kid.
No, that's the same reason why Syracuse played Delaware the week before. And why we got
Did you
Cornell
take
Notre
the
Dame
call?
in 2
Did you
weeks.
say wherever you want us to be at? We'll be there.
They're just handing out dates to everybody, and they're just like, yeah, sure. Just forgetting they have to play conference games.
Yeah, because I mean, they could have maybe. No, let me see who Syracuse plays the 21st. Yeah, they can't. They couldn't wedge it in on the 20th because Syracuse plays Virginia.
There was renovations going on at the Dome.
They couldn't.
That's what they always said now.
They couldn't wedge it.
We got renovations going on at the Dome.
They couldn't wedge it in next week because Duke plays Notre Dame. And they couldn't wedge it in today because Syracuse was playing Notre Dame. Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, ACC Network wants some weeknight inventory, but
it should have been last.
It should have been last
Saturday. And apparently, I guess Duke
forgot when they got the call. Oh, we can play Denver and
Maryland. Yes, I don't know. I'm sure. But Quint said that Duke he said that they double booked or something, and
I mean, that is so college lacrosse, it hurts.
That's funny. It's like when the Duke, it's like when the Cuse Hopkins game for why I was in Charlotte, and the Charlotte reporter guy was like, Cuse had renovations in the Dome, and they had played 3 straight games at Homewood. It's like, well, that's not true. It's like, I don't know what.
I think the correct answer for that was both programs were getting bags of money for it. This was in danger. This was in danger of not being played. Syracuse Hopkins in danger of not being played for the first time ever.
We had to do it.
The goodness of our community's hearts. We just had
to.
We saved it by having it part of the Crown Classic. No, both programs got paid a lot of money.
I love the Crown. You really go on the Crown page. It's like, where is the money for this coming from?
just dark money. Just
no sponsors on the page. There's no.
It's a PIF. This is their first foray into lacrosse. Oh god!
Why is it so hard for these schools to just play games at home? I just it's this wave of just games at high schools. It's just weirdest. It was one thing when IL was just let's play in M&T Bank Stadium.
It's cool.
Oh yeah, it's an NFL stadium. That was just every week. It's we're playing at this high school.
For triple the M&T price.
Oh my god, dude, it's insane.
To be fair, they got Cornell Notre Dame playing at LIU, but then they don't have LIU playing in that doubleheader. They have some high school game after that.
Cornell and Notre Dame are playing at LIU on aren't they
Sunday? But LIU's not even playing in it.
Dog,
They have a
what?
doubleheader with like a Chaminade or St. Anthony's game after it.
Oh, so that's it. So it's like the Kavanaugh, like, just like, uh, what is it? The Kavanaugh go home, like, senior year, memorial,
Yeah, it's Notre Dame and
farewell. Yada,
Cornell.
yada.
All their guys come from Long Island.
Wait, no, the Kavanaughs aren't Chaminade. They're, what is it?
St. Anthony's.
No, what's the one that starts with an R? God, I forget. Are they Chaminade? I think they're Chaminade, aren't they? I'm losing my mind now.
Chaminade. Yeah,
Yes,
they were
yeah,
Chaminade.
They're from Rockville Center. Yes,
No. But the high school they went to Chaminade. They went to Chaminade.
It's Chaminade, and Chaminade's in Rockville.
No,
Center.
it's not. Chaminade's in Mineola, but it gets a lot of people in Nassau County.
It's
a Catholic school.
Different, whatever. But yeah, so like so basically, yeah, Notre Dame got Cornell to give up a game in Ithaca, so that the Kavanaughs can basically have a home game. I guess I mean, LIU's.
To be fair, it's also a Cornell home game. It's a home game for both because their whole rosters come from friggin' Long Island.
Well, actually, Cornell.
Well, historically, Cornell's all Long Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, Cornell. Long's from New Jersey, Curse's from New Jersey, Hugh Kelleher, Wantagh, New York, Spencer Wertheim, Baldwinsville, Danny Cadigan,
Baldwinsville's Syracuse area.
I don't know. Cornell doesn't seem like they have as many New York guys anymore. They got a lot of Canadians.
Back in the day, they had a lot of Long Islanders.
Yeah, what a weird.
It was a funny story when I was hearing about how, like, this is back when I was in college, how, like, when Cornell, the men's team, everyone was Long Island. And then I found out from my friends who played college women's lacrosse that Cornell doesn't recruit Long Island at all for women's lacrosse, at least back in 2010s and 2000s. Like, that's wild because the entire men's team is Long Island. And then you're telling me that the women's team doesn't even recruit Long Island? That was like nuts.
It's seriously, it's like, what if we just, again, like, what if,
Well, tying this all back together to Gary Gait, it's kind of amazing that he didn't throw Hofstra or Stony Brook on the schedule this year because he loved going to do all these Long Island recruiting trip games. I guess he was too focused on getting the
RP
that hot North Virginia recruiting market.
You need to schedule. Don't be North Carolina with our 6-4 RPI of 28 and throwing the ball to the sideline at the end of games and possessions.
It's just all recruiting. It's just that meme with the space, the astronaut. It's just a world. Just like, wait, is this just all for recruiting? Like, it always has been.
The thing I love about that is, like, yes, because the recruits who are in, like, Maryland and, like, Long Island need to be more aware of Syracuse and, like, Notre Dame lacrosse. They definitely aren't aware of, like, the 5 options that they have to, like, go to.
Wow, you could go to one of the 4 top ACC schools or one of the top 3 Big Ten schools,
or you can go to an
smart. You could go to an Ivy. Wow.
It's like these kids,
and you're going to a Catholic school on Long Island. You're going to St. Anthony's or Chaminade and paying their tuition. Boy, I guess that limits your options.
Like,
or you're going to Boys Latin or one of the Georgetown Prep or one of these Maryland schools where you're paying like $30,000 a year up the ass. And boy, I didn't know about these schools.
It's a Catholic school tuition where lacrosse, is like one of their, like, premium, like, high school sports that has sent, tons of alumni to, D1 schools whose parents even, probably, like,
play college sports
are either play college sports or at minimum hugely invested in sending their kids to one of these schools, are not at all aware of Notre Dame or, like, Cornell or Princeton. Joe Bresci just walks in the room and they're like, North Carolina? I ain't heard of this.
In America?
My son could play there?
I am so looking forward to going to this Cornell Notre Dame game and just seeing what friggin' spectacle they have on the sidelines, trying to get kids to sign up for camps and crap. I bet
a Notre Dame Cornell game on Long Island sounds like even like more peak caucasity than the Princeton Syracuse game you went to last year.
Oh, it probably is. I mean, they are like it's Cornell, Notre Dame, and Duke are your three Long Island schools. Never mind LIU, Hofstra, and Stony Brook.
Those Duke Notre Dame games on Long Island when they happen must be just like
it's like
the number
Duke,
of mentions
UNC
of like
basketball game.
401ks and like portfolios and
This Notre Dame Cornell game might top.
Oh, hey, yeah, like if you're not in a like pullover like sweater with like the zipper, like they look at you like like funny, like what he's wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah, I might have to break out my Ranger game outfit for that one.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yes. Find like a FDNY hat.
Oh, yeah. My cousin's in the NYPD. I could probably get some merch from him for a day. Get it back to blue
like
flag hat.
Yeah, September 11th camo t-shirt. Like, yeah, just...
I do donate to the Tunnel of the Towers Foundation every year. So, look, I can just stick this on my cooler.
Some memorial like 5K like marathon t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some pork roll, egg and cheese place in Staten Island. Some hat that gives you some. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, a charity 5K that's been sponsored by some large brokerage firm, sponsored by a big accounting firm, and by Chase.
Oh yeah.
Chase.
Find a Goldman hat, Ryan, and just wear that Goldman Sachs hat.
Well, that's the other thing. My brother's in an accounting firm, so maybe I could get some merch from him.
There you go. Don't like answer every question you get about it with like yes. So
we gotta find like
yes.
We gotta find an Arthur Anderson shirt. You'd be like, yeah, before.
get a whatchamacallit? What's Vineyard Vines? Get some Vineyard Vines stuff in there. I don't know. I feel like the Vineyard Vines. I gotta go Vineyard Vines instead of Patagonia.
Vineyard Vines is for like a Rutgers game. Like this is we're talking different. We're talking different gravy here.
So Brooks Brothers.
Screw it.
Does Brooks Brothers do best?
Just go in a tie, Ryan. Just go in like a black tie, a tux. Just go all sides. And they're like, "Why are you wearing a tux?" And you're like, "It's after 12 o'clock. What am I, a farmer?" Like just that line from like 30 Rock, and just go on your way.
I mean, it is Cornell involved in it too, so I can either throw a Northwell Health hat on, maybe a New York Presbyterian.
I just got out of surgery, all right? I got out of work or something.
Hey, that was almost me. If it weren't for that deluge of a rainstorm, that could have been me last year against Hofstra. Straight from the hospital to a Crosse game. I would have been like, you freeze at you freeze. Just give him the thumbs up as Gary Gate goes that to me. And Gary Gate and Seth give me the thumbs up, and I'm in the press box in the hospital bed.
Gary Gate just pointing at you.
That Dino Babers, Louisville thing where he's like,
against Liberty. Yeah, now's you free. Now's you feast.
Seth Tierney's like, is that the guy who keeps telling me to lose my job every?
And why is he? Wasn't his appendectomy a week ago? What the hell is he still doing in the hospital bed? He wasn't septic.
Oh. They just wheel you out on the gurney. Just make a wish. Remember we said to make a wish to Donowski? We thought Ryan was going to be like a kid, but it's like a 30-year-old guy.
Can you imagine Dino retiring and doing cameos?
Cameo app, or are we talking cameos in entertainment?
Cameo, both. Like.
By the way, before we wrap things up, Bill Tierney going to the PLL. Donowski is not about that life. Like, we were always joking around about how Tierney would be on a boat off Long Island every summer. No, he's going into coaching. Donowski's absolutely not about that life. The second Donowski retires, he is spending his entire summer on the South Shore of Long Island on his boat, docking and going to some bar on Fire Island or Babylon or Patchogue or Long Beach or the Freeport Nautical Mile and just living that life. Clearly, Bill Tierney is not about that life.
Oh man, Bill's a
He's
killer.
Michael Corleone. He's just like a jagger back in.
Bill's he's like he only knows one way. Like there is no other way for Bill. You know? Like he's different. He's a different beast. Like yeah. Like like it's just the game. You know, it's all Bill is the total opposite. What's that? The Wire scene where it's like the game not in me no more.
Oh yeah, Cuddy. No, he's
Cuddy tells us, hey, Avon, Slim. He's like the game not in me no more. You know, what do you mean? He's like, I don't know. It's just none of it. The game is always.
This is Marlowe when he took down Prop Joe. Just
game is always in Bill. Yeah, Dino, like he's gonna retire and just post like selfies on like, or not even selfie, just like pictures of, like the water, like it'll be just like it'll be like 1 o'clock and it's just gonna be like a picture of the water. It'll be like when Petro was like tweeting like screenshots.
Here's an interesting movie. But yeah, I can totally see Danowski.
He would look up the Google image and then take a screenshot.
Oh my god! Yes, just
so
great post.
Great, what a poster.
I think that was one of our better cross commission off-topic talks. It's kind of funny. We were very nice and tidy. We got all the scores done in an hour, and then it's just this great
People are going to see like an hour 30. People are going to see like an hour 30 and be like, man, they talked about a lot. It's like, yeah.
No, for 20 minutes, we talked about the greatness of Corrigan Sports Enterprises and John Danowski spending his retirement wishing little Billy from Garden City.
You have no idea how much.
And it chases dreams as his parents' 401k will get him into Chaminade in another 10 years.
You don't know how much I want a CSC press release talking about how they signed a deal with the PIA. Like a groundbreaking deal, an international deal with the PIA. Corrigan Sports can now produce even more content for cross-loving fans.
And this time, not on Flow Sports.
Where do you think the money for Flow Sports comes from? I need to know this. Like
private equity.
Colombian drug. It's just a front for Colombian drug cartel.
Is there money for this? I don't even think there's money for it. I think it's like they just like call people like around the country.
It's just like boiler room. It's just a room full of phones.
So
exactly. It's like they just have ringers like across the country who just like film it on a handheld in the press box. Like literally one of them, like that Penn State Stony Brook game was. I swear to God, it was just a
15-year-old kid like $30, and they're just like give you like a gift card for hot dogs, and then that's it.
It's like the independent wrestling of like like streaming apps. Like here's a hot dog and a handshake, brother.
The funny thing is, like Flow Sports, like has an extensive motorsports rivalry. Like they got all like the NASCAR regional series. They got like all the short track series, including.
Yeah, but like, is the quality good?
For auto racing, I've heard good things. For everything else, no.
No.
They put all their effort into motor racing, not on college sports. Guess what the majority of their rights are? College sports. So Flow Sports is actually founded by Martin Floriani, Mark Floriani, and Madhu Venkate's son.
Is it founded by the guy who bought the Islanders in like 1996?
No, but it is.
That guy's 30 on him?
Yes. No, that's Spanos. And it's based in, guess where? Austin, Texas. So it's some startup, it's some equity pumping into that.
So the money is definitely not real.
Yeah, it's Austin, Texas. It's definitely not real.
The quality is it's so horrific. Like it's generally the worst thing. Like I would rather, I'm not even joking, it be like the old Drexel Portal where like they just they just get
Sure.
they just get a one camera in like literally like behind the like in the stands, like the last row of the stands, and they just film it in there, and I hear people just like talking about their lives. Like that would be better than what Flow Sport is like. It's legitimately just like insulting. I mean, the old Drexel one was like, I mean, it was hilarious because like, you know, the in between like the, you know, cheers for like a goal, you would get like these people just like talking about, you know, like, well, for, you know, at work this week, it's like it feels weird. I feel like I shouldn't be watching this.
You want to know how they blew up? All right, so this is from Wiki, so who knows if it's totally true. But all right, so there's the brothers, right? Martin and Mark, and this other dude, Matu. So the brothers raised 10K seed money from friends and family, started
Seed
covering
money. There we
wrestling
go. It's private equity
and
money that isn't
Oh
real.
yeah. Oh
track
yeah.
of events. Co-founder Mark captured the service's first original broadcast, Ryan Hall's half marathon record, from the back of a pickup truck using a handheld camera. No, we weren't exaggerating. That's their origin story.
Safe. Continue reading. It gets better with the next sentence.
Yeah. Lo-fi footage, engine noise, digital interference, and fog impacted the quality of the broadcast. Yeah, it has continued on to 2024.
However, having the only footage
having the
Paul's
only footage
record-breaking
of
run
Paul's
causes surge
record-breaking
in the
caused
website popularity,
surge.
and it has not improved quality since.
That's what changed they changed their business model to subscription based in 2012 and doubled their revenue over the following 2 years.
The word seed
So they
money
find
was all that
something
you needed.
people like. Yeah, they find something people like, and then they just capture charge for it.
All right, we have no more viewers. We've completely driven everybody
Sick.
out with this.
Oh hell yeah.
Sick. So on that note,
the best content we've ever done.
yes,
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. So follow us at Crosse College _ Crosse.
We need to title this the worst podcast ever.
It was great. We had a nice tidy first hour. We got everything. We did the power hour. Then we just went full crosscast, as we like to call it.
Oh, I love it. Hell yeah.
You can also follow us. You can subscribe on our YouTube page for more quality content.
Just get it out of here.
Stay hydrated.